Hello, hello. I'm Jen Henry, owner and founder of Lifestyle Recovery Solutions, and recently best-selling author of my new book, Resilience: A Different Kind of Strong. And I am just so grateful to be here and be a part of this Feminine Economy Summit. I know that for myself, I spent most of my life being everything for everyone else, making sure that you were okay because I thought that would help me be okay. And I found my worth in my value in how you felt about me, how much value I was to you. And when I think about how detrimental, when I think about the consequences of that, I was homeless. I was intravenous drug user. I was in and out of jail and mental hospitals and rehabs and eventually landed in prison. Now, I may have had a very extreme reaction to living that kind of life and showing up in life that way, super codependent, needing to be needed in order to be okay. And some of you may have a different experience, but completely understand what it is to be imprisoned, to feel like you're in prison and to not be able to use your voice, to be able to shine your light, be bright, be out loud, speak out loud about what it is that you need and you want in your life. And I am here to hold space for you for the next 20 minutes or so to help you identify where you might be able to start taking action towards creating the life that you love, creating an authentic, genuine, fully lived life. And it's through a framework that I've put together over the last 12 years in my own journey of lifestyle recovery. And lifestyle recovery may be a new term for you. You may not have heard it before. And it's because I am doing my best to create a movement and introduce it to the world. Because from my experience, my understanding, it never really was about the drugs or the alcohol or the sex or the social media or the food. It was about my need to escape my present reality. It was about my inability to be okay in my own skin. It was my inability to realize or be able to identify who I was. And what I realized, it was about my issue was not the drugs or the alcohol. My issue was the need to escape. And so it wasn't until I started to take these certain steps in my life, it wasn't until I started to take these certain actions in my life that I was able to actually identify, pin down what the things were that I needed in my life in order to be okay. What were the things that I liked? What was my favorite color? Because I didn't know. What kind of food did I really like to eat? Well, how did I really like to dress? How did I like to present myself? Who was I? Regardless of who you are. And when I finally put this framework together, I knew that it was something that I had to share with the world. I knew that it was my responsibility to be an example of what it looked like to prioritize my own health and wellness, my own happiness, my own success, to be able to fill my cup so that I could then overflow into those that I loved and cared about and wanted to serve. And so the freedom framework that I'm talking about are 6 simple yet effective and sometimes, heavy things to work on, some things that I started having to pay attention to that helped me to create a life of personal freedom while sustainably creating a life where I can serve others. And when I think back to the way it felt to be as chronically disconnected as I was, I get so devastated for that version of me. And I have so much sympathy and empathy and understanding and love for her because she just didn't know. She just didn't know what it was like. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know anything about what it was to truly exist. And so that first piece became connection. And so as I go through these parts, these are the 6 parts, the 6 steps to the freedom framework. And excuse me, because life is in session here in the house. And my puppies want to always get their word in too. So, but the first part of this framework being connection, because until we can get a current location, a current experience, an idea of what it is that's going on right now in our lives, right? What's going on with my health? What does that look like? Not what do I want it to look like? Not what do I think it should look like? Not what others think it should look like, but what does it look like? What does it actually look like right now in my life, in my health, in my finances, in my relationships, in my career in my, am I living my purpose? Am I doing what I'm called here to do? What, if not, what am I doing? When I start to identify these things, I can look at what's going well and what's not. And if something's not going well, why isn't it, like, not why isn't it going well just yet, but what is it that that is trying to do for us? What is it that that is trying to tell us? And when we look at, okay, well, you know, I tend to binge a little bit on food. And by a little bit, I mean, once I start, I don't stop. And then at nighttime, if it's 11 o'clock at night and I start snacking, I notice that I just keep snacking and until the thing is gone that I'm eating. No matter if it's a full bag of chips, a full box of Cheez-Its, whatever it is, even when it comes to healthy food, I will start to binge. And when I can stop and connect, I can ask myself what the intentions are behind that. And then maybe at that point, I can shift a strategy. But until I get to part two, step two, how do I know where to shift those strategies if I don't have a desired location? If I don't have a clear idea of what it is that I want, then how do I know how to get it? How do I start creating a plan or a blueprint or strategy or map around how to get there? And so that's why step two is alignment. What am I aligning with? What is it that what is the direction I'm headed? If I want to go to New York and I live in California and I start driving west, I'm probably not going the right direction. If I want to get there as quickly as possible, do I walk? Do I take a train? Do I take a bus? Do I hitchhike? Or do I fly? Now, when I start to get super clear on that first part of where am I actually at right now? And then I start to get super clear, and I'm talking create a vision. I'm talking whether we do vision board, whether it's, you know, I get distracted very easily when my dogs start barking. So stay with me and I'll try and stay with you. And when I can create a clear vision, I can start to look for evidence of what it is that I need to do. I can start to look for examples of what I need to do. I can start to map out the best strategy, the best blueprint for how I can get to that place. And so when I start looking for examples and I start surrounding myself with others who have done these things or have acquired these things or who have accomplished these things, I can start to look at evidence of what it is that they've done. And I can start to apply some of those pieces to my life. And I start to look at how they're living and what they're thinking and who they are stepping into, who they are showing up as in the world. And I get to decide if that's in alignment with how I want to feel, with who I want to be in this world as well. Now, once I start to look at all these first two pieces, now step three comes in, balance. And there has been some debate around whether or not this is balance or whether this is harmony. And while all of these work in harmony together, what I'm looking for is energetic balance. Where is my energy going? Where is my attention going? Where is my focus throughout the day? Now, if I am constantly focusing on work and I'm trying to improve my health, but all of my hours and all of my effort and all of my time are going towards my work, how do I refocus or pull some of that energy and redirect it towards my health? Where can I start carving out 5 minutes? Where can I start carving out then 10? Because if all of a sudden I start trying to carve out an hour a day for movement and exercise, where am I going to pull that from? Right? Is there some time throughout my schedule that I can pull just a few minutes to start? And once I can get used to doing those few minutes, can I then stretch it? Or vice versa. If I remember a time, I digress. I have a history in personal training and bodybuilding, but it's fitness training, fitness competitions. And I've done over 15 fitness competitions. And then I did it in the course of about 7 years. And over the course of that time, when I first got into fitness, I got into it for health. I got into it to feel better. I got into it for mental health reasons. I had just gotten off of a bunch of psych medications and I was coming out of my skin. I had all of this nervous energy. I had all of these stuck feelings and I didn't know how to get to express them yet. And I had to get them out somehow. And so I instinctively started to move my body. And like any good obsessive type personality, right? That can go good or bad. And for a little while, it was great. And it really served me well. And I got really into moving my body every single day for at least a half an hour and then at least an hour. And then it became really about lifting weights. And then I started developing the nutrition and then I started competing. And once I started doing that and it stopped being about what was going on inside. And I started putting my body on stage for others to judge next to other bodies. It absolutely became all about the body. Eventually, I developed orthorexia, where I couldn't even eat without weighing the food, where I couldn't walk around without pinching my body fat, which was less than 10% body fat for years. My body started shutting down. My kidneys started shutting down. My cycle stopped. And one day it clicked. Over this series of multiple little clicks, the big click finally happened when I was standing on stage one day and I was competing for first place with a woman who I didn't want to emulate. And I realized that this wasn't it. And all of my time, my whole life was focused on what my body looked like and this so-called health regimen that wasn't healthy at all. And I had to learn, what I had to do was step back, reconnect to who I was being, who I was showing up as, decide if this was in alignment with who I really wanted to be showing up in the world as. Was this who I really wanted to be? And it wasn't. And that's where I started to take a look at, well, where is my focus going? How much have I really focused on my family and friends and social life and joy? How much have I been spending on fitness and health, right? Because it was like 80% of my bubble. How much was I really focusing on my career? I wasn't building my business. I was just working in my business. And so stepping back and looking at this wheel, if you will, and all the different lengths of the different spokes on this wheel, I started to try and balance this wheel and make it to where as I'm riding along the road, there's not one spoke that's longer than the other. I'm able to energetically give myself to all the areas of my life. And as I started working through what those were, I was able to start deciding how much of my energy was going to be distributed to each area of my life. And as I started to do that, I realized that I actually started to be able to grow in every single area because every single area was supported by another. But I wasn't able to do that until I started really honoring what it was that I wanted. I had to really connect to what I was experiencing in the moment, take a look at what it was that I wanted to be experiencing, what it was I wanted to be accomplishing, and decide if I was in alignment with that. And if I wasn't, and I was getting off balance as a result, I had to learn how to honor my yes and no's. And that's step 4 is boundaries. Being able to say no without feeling guilty, being able to say yes because I know I'm worth it, or because I know it's something that is important to me or necessary for me and not negotiable in my life. And when I started honoring those yeses and nos, and I stepped back and I really asked myself, am I saying yes because this is what I need or want? Or am I saying yes because I think it's going to make someone else happy? Now, there are definitely times in my life where I'm going to do something I don't necessarily want to do because I love someone, or because I care about them, or because I want what's best for them. But while a part of me may not want to do it, obviously, because I'm doing it, there's a part of me that understands that this is intrinsically something that I do. This is who I am. I am able to be here as a resource for others because of the work that I do. And so my ability to say yes and no to certain things has grown exponentially and become so much more authentic because I know who I am. I know where I'm at in life. I know where I'm going and what I want in life. And I know how to energetically balance myself for the most part. It's not a perfect process, but I know how to balance my energy in a way that helps me to be able to serve others sustainably. And so while sometimes I may not feel like it, I get on the call. Well, sometimes I may not feel like it, I get to the gym, or I help that client with whatever it is that they need, or I help that family member with whatever it is they need. And every single time, I'm grateful that I had the opportunity. And so I start to recognize that there is this piece that is absolutely my missing piece. And it was authenticity, because I had to really start asking myself those hard questions. Who is this for? Who is this serving? What is this solving? What is the result that I want from this? And I get to decide what my experience is as a result. Now, I can simplify that in saying, be honest with yourself. And then be honest with yourself first, so that then you can be honest with others. It's when we begin to be honest with each other, which is step 5, authenticity, right? When I can start to be honest with myself and then in turn be honest with others about what I need or want or like or don't like, I start to kind of weed out. The universe just starts to kind of disassemble this web that I'd created of people pleasing, of codependency, of, as a giver, pulling in these takers that had no appreciation, that weren't there for the experience. That, how do I explain this? That I was able to weed out. I think that's the word I was looking for. I was able to start weeding out. The universe started weeding out those that were there for, I don't want to say my benefit, but for my enrichment, for to be able to love, to be able to nurture, to be able to cherish the people that are meant to be and that are in alignment with the life that I'm meant to live on this earth. They started getting brighter. They started taking up more space. They started being able to be more present in my life. Whereas those that were not started to dwindle away. Because your vibe attracts your tribe is a saying that has gone on in this field for a long time. And that is the truth, right? We vibe wherever our frequencies are, that is what we attract. And when our worth is down here and we're willing to be anything for anyone and be whatever you need us to be in order to be okay, that is not who we are. That is not who we're meant to be here. There are people that you're meant to serve, and you're not going to find them serving everybody. But you will absolutely find them serving and showing up authentically, being honest about who you are in this world. And that's not always easy. Sometimes it takes one or two people, sometimes it takes 100 people, a community, a village, to be able to really hold us accountable to who it is that we're showing up as in the world. And so the sixth piece, the final, I can't say most important because they're all important, but the final piece of this is accountability. But not just to others, especially not just to others, but who are you holding yourself accountable to being? Right? Who is your being? And this touches on every single one of the parts. But when we look at accountability and we look at, we're being accountable to our goals, which is a very common thing in the coaching industry, and when in the self-growth industry, like, we're accountable to our goals, we're accountable to certain things. And when we think about goals, we often forget that there is a big difference between goals and standards. And so daily, I hold myself accountable to non-negotiables. What are the things that I put in place no matter what? What is the standard mode of operation? What is the standard operating procedure? What happens no matter what else is happening in the world? Like, what happens no matter if there's a pandemic? What happens no matter if there's anything going on? What is it that who are you showing up as? What are the actions you're taking in your life no matter what? And then there are goals. There are goals, and the standards that we set are absolutely in relation to these goals. But for example, my standard is I move my body every day. I take my dogs for a walk, or I go for a walk around the block, or I do some kind of movement for a minimum, no matter what, of 15 minutes a day. My heart rate gets up. My goal is 5 times a week at the gym. Now, that is not 100% constant. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 3. But the goal that I set, I'd like to hit on a regular, is 5 a day, or 5 a week, excuse me. The standard that I set is that I eat clean 80% of the time. The goal is to choose foods that actually serve my body, right? I'm sorry, excuse me. My standard is to choose foods that serve my body. It's what I do, right? But there are also other foods that I feed my body. And so when 80% of the time I am absolutely eating super clean, in the sense that I'm eating foods that have been grown, they are clean, they are not GMO, they are well, grown or killed, right? Sorry, I am not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan. I do appreciate my animals, but I also know where they're sourced from for the most part. And there's a big difference between not knowing where what you are putting in your body is coming from and being able to pay close enough attention because you're connected, because you know what you want, because you know how to focus on where your energy comes from. And you're getting energy from the foods that you ingest into your body. what you're saying yes and no to, honoring that, paying attention to that. What am I saying yes to when I eat a certain food? Right. And I start recognizing this as my standard is I pay attention. My standard is I pay attention. My goal is to transcend. My goal is to be enlightened. My goal is to be able to step back and stay in the frequency that I want to stay in without being sucked into the other frequencies that are going on around me. Now, that's not always easy for me. I am very sensitive in that way. But when we can start to recognize these things, and that is what this freedom framework is all about, when we start to recognize how we're showing up in the world, who we're showing up as, how much space we're taking up, how we're making an impact, and where we're making an impact, that is really when we start to be able to live a life of true personal freedom because we're paying attention. So remember that when it comes down to it, you are the only one that gets to decide what you experience in this life. You can choose to show up for everyone else in every way, or you can choose to show up in the way that you were meant to, for the people that you were meant to, and make the kind of mark in this world that you were meant to. So thank you so much for joining me. I would love to be able to invite you to, as you know, I shared about my book a little bit earlier. I would love to invite you to join me over in the book portal. And it has a bunch of worksheets. It has a few videos, ways to help you connect and ground and center so that you can start to decide what it is that you want in this life and who you want to show up as, because the world needs your light. So I look forward to getting to know you more. I look forward to seeing all the wonderful women that are showing up for this Feminine Economy Summit. And I'm so grateful that I had this opportunity to be here with you today.